Today we're going to be going over 5 quick and easy steps you can use to paint your D&D miniatures. Now, this is not an advanced workshop. This is a video for folk just getting started with mini painting. So if you're new to mini painting and have no idea where to begin, you're probably in the right place. Number 1, supplies. First, we're going to need supplies. And for that, we're going to be using this Game Master Character Starter paint set from Army Painter because it includes everything we need. 5 high-quality, hard plastic snap fit minis, 20 paints, a brush, and a painting guide. That you can get all of this for under $50 is pretty amazing. So if you're looking to get into mini painting, you really can't go wrong here. It has pretty much everything you need to get started. Now, in full disclosure, I did receive this paint set for free from Army Painter, and they are sponsoring this video. But for those of you who know me, I don't recommend garbage. I've been using Army Painter gear for quite some time now, and this is a solid product. Number 2, prepare the minis for painting. Now, the first step is to prepare the minis for painting. You'll notice that these minis come in plastic frames. We'll need to take them out of the frames, but first let's wash them. We'll use basic dish soap and warm water for this, and this is an important step to make sure that we get rid of any chemical residue from the molds or other stuff that might have gotten on the plastic. We want a clean surface to paint on. After we let them dry, we'll use some fine wire cutters or a hobby knife to cut them away from the plastic. We want to make sure that we don't leave any unsightly bumps or nicks on the minis, so we'll be careful here. Finally, we'll assemble the minis. Now, they can just be snapped together without adhesive, but I personally feel a little bit better with some glue in there to make sure that arm or sword is never falling off. Number 3, apply brush-on primer to all minis and let them dry. A coat of primer does a couple things. First, it helps the paint colors stick to the mini better, and second, it makes the colors look better once applied. Now, this kit comes with a brush-on primer called Gray Undercoat, so we'll be applying that to the minis. You don't want the primer coat to be super thin, but neither too thick either, as that can obscure details on the mini. Now, just so you're aware, there are spray-on primers out there too that folks often use. However, both paint-on and spray-on get the job done. Once we prime the minis, we'll need to let them dry before painting, obviously, and I would give them at least 1 hour to dry, though honestly, I usually prime at least a day in advance of when I plan to paint, just to be completely safe. Number 4, paint just 1 mini and let it dry. Okay, the next step is to start painting. Now, Army Painter's Game Master Character Starter set does come with 20 paints, so we should definitely have all the basic colors we'll need. That's one of the things I like about this set. Now, we'll be using a wet palette to paint with because it prevents the paints from drying out, but you can also use a basic plastic paint tray as well. So we'll grab a color and make sure we shake it up nicely before using. One of the things you'll notice about these Army Painter paints is that they have shaker balls inside the bottles, which helps mix the paint thoroughly when shaken before use. Then we put paint on our wet palette and start painting. A basic guideline for painting is to paint inside out, which means you start with lower surfaces such as skin and eyes before moving on to more elevated surfaces such as clothing, armor, and weapons. As we're painting, we're going to be careful to paint inside the lines, only applying the color where we want it. However, if we mess up, we can always apply some gray undercoat over the spot we messed up, effectively covering up the mistake. Now you'll notice here that I'm using an old pill bottle and poster tack to create a handle for the mini as I'm painting it. This helps me keep my grubby hands off the fine paint job. Another trick that's useful if you're painting lots of minis is to use assembly line painting. This means you'll pick a batch of 5 or more minis, grab a color, and apply that color to all of the minis where they need it. Then you grab another color and do the same, applying it to all of the minis. This works really well if you have several minis of the same type. Let's say a band of goblins or a band of orcs. Assembly line painting will save you time and paint because more ends up on your minis and there's less left over in the palette unused. Number 5, apply some dry brushing to certain colors. The next step here is to do a little dry brushing. Dry brushing involves applying a lighter tone of paint to raised edges to create the appearance of brighter areas and shadows. This is really quite easy and makes a huge difference in the final appearance of a mini. So once you've applied the paint you'd like to a mini, select a color or two that should be dry brushed. Usually I'll pick the most elevated parts of a mini and those that cover large areas. For instance, cloaks and other clothing usually work best for this. For basic mini painting, there is no need to dry brush everything. Next, we're going to mix a little bit of that color of paint with white paint to lighten it up a bit. Now, a little white paint mixed in goes a long way. Then we're going to take a brush. I'm going to be using an old bristly brush for this since they work really well for dry brushing. And we can just get a little paint on it. Then we want to paint onto a paper towel to remove most of the paint from the brush. A A key to dry brushing is to only have a little paint on the brush. Then we'll quickly pass the brush over the elevated edges of the part of the Mini we're targeting. It's super important not to get your brush down into all the nooks and crannies. We are intentionally only hitting the raised edges. When done properly, we'll end up with lightened edges and deeper shadows in the recesses. Number 6, sealing the Minis. The fifth and final step is to seal your Minis. If you don't apply a sealant to the Minis after painting, you're gonna find the paint wearing off as you handle them during gameplay. And after spending all that time painting, you definitely don't want that happening. Now, Testors Spray Enamel Dull Coat is generally what's recommended for Minis, but in the past, I've often just used cheap spray enamel from the store as well. What you're looking for is a clear matte enamel. Basically, all you do once your Minis have fully dried from painting, and I would give it a day or two at least, is apply a thin coat of enamel to the Mini and let it dry. It's not too complicated. I will throw links to all the products we used today, including Army Painter's Game Master Character Starter Paint Set, down below if you'd like to pick them up. I'll probably do some more mini painting videos in the future, so if you did find this useful, please let me know in the comments and maybe let me know what you're interested in learning more about. But until then, here's a couple more fine videos that you may find interesting. So, you know, go watch them or do something fun with the rest of your wonderful day.